Good morning, Muscatine. I have a breaking announcement in case you didn't know this about the Muscatine Today show. This is not scripted. It is 100% made up as we go. I hope you're having a good Tuesday. This is actually a nice sort of quiet week before the craziness starts. Obviously, as we talked about yesterday, start getting ready for the holidays because you've got a ton coming up with Jingle and Mingle, Toy Time, the toy drive the week after Thanksgiving, freezing for food, the food drive for the Salvation Army the week following, and then we just all roll into Christmas and we know that's crazy. So get ready now, enjoy a couple days, and then get ready to roll. I have with us this morning, I'm going to say, the coolest engineering background person I know. I'm not quite sure how to say that, but Gage Huston, general manager of MPW.
Wait. Are you trying to say engineers aren't cool?
No.
Generally?
No. I'm just saying of all the ones I know, that's where, like my neighbor, Jamie's an engineering guy.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
I wanted to be able to say that to Jamie when I get home.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
So Gage, if you would real quick, for those that don't know you, introduce yourself, a little bit of your background and kind of what you do at MPW, what your day looks like.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm Gage Huston. I'm the general manager at Muscatine Power and Water. I've actually been with MPW for 20 years now. It's hard to believe, time flies. But I am an electrical engineer by trade, and I started down at our power plant facility, held some engineering roles and then roles in operations and maintenance, and then had a chance to take on just more responsibility. And then when Sal Lobianco retired back in 2019, I had the chance to move into the GM role, which has just been fantastic. It's been a really exciting last several years. Now we've rolled out new strategic plans, we've taken on some really big projects, and we just have an absolutely awesome team of folks at MPW. We have about 275 roughly employees here in town, and the work that we do, I think, is so important to the community, both for our residents and for the businesses here in Muscatine. Utilities are just such a fundamental part of the operation. I like being a part of that, and I like working with the team that we have, so that's great.
Well, and that's one thing that I always tell people, because we get, as Pearl City Media, we get to kind of work with you guys more closely on some of this stuff than a lot of people ever get to see. And it never ceases to amaze me. Like we're a small little business, so we're pretty easy to, shift gears and all this other stuff. But what I love about how you guys work is you have this crazy blend of long-term strategic planning and being nimble like a small company. You can react to things as they go, but like your long-term planning, and this goes back to planning power production in the 70s and 80s and like the fiber to the home projects and all that stuff. That team does such a great job of both sides of it. Yeah,
it's interesting. I haven't had anybody quite articulate it like that, but it makes a lot of sense. And part of that, I think, has to do with the different types of industries that we're in. Yep. And you said going all the way back to 1900 when the water utility was founded. So water and then electricity, very long-term, infrastructure-heavy industries that you need to be planning 10, 20, 30 years out in a lot of ways. But then comes along the communications utility. Now you're in the video space, you're in the internet space, phone, telecommunications, entirely different industry, technology changing and evolving much more quickly, and that's probably provided that combination that you mentioned.
And again, like one last thing, and because every time I see this in use, it blows my mind how well it works, and that's how you guys integrated. We've all seen like the magic GIS system, that you see properties and all that fun stuff on. You basically, you combine that with all your water systems, all your electrical systems, and the telecommunication systems, and you have like real time, like this is where the problem is. Like you guys know before we do, more often than not, what's wrong and where. Yeah. And I'm a tech guy, and every time I see it, I'm still going, holy crap.
How did they get that all together? Yeah, and it's a lot of that has to do with the awesome Magic teams. We have that GIS consortium between us and the county and the city, and Mark Urington and his team are just so talented, and they do an excellent job of pulling that data from multiple sources. And Because that data in itself is valuable, but being able to display it in ways that are beneficial to employees, to residents, is really challenging, and they do a fantastic job.
You know, folks, this is how you use it. And I should know how to do this. I totally botched it all. It was so funny. So I get home like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, you guys were flushing hydrants, I think it was. And for some reason, it looked like you guys were, you were like kind of a day behind schedule, right?
Yeah.
And so get home, run some water. I'm like, hey, miss, the water pressure's down, right? And okay, so she checks with the neighbor. Oh yeah, it's all down. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll check and see if they're like flushing. Because I knew you were. And I'm like, I thought ours was like yesterday. I checked. And here's the funny thing. So I look at the map, it's all green, and there's literally like 2 hydrants left being flushed in the entire city, right? It was ours. But like I'm looking at it, and it said through the day before, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I thought it was all that. And I saw the map, and it was like all green. So I'm like, huh. So I call over, 263, 2631, which everybody knows the number. Yeah. I call over, I'm like, hey, can I talk to the water folks real quick? I'm like, hey, like, well, yeah, we're flushing out there right now. And I still had it up on my screen. And I sort of zoomed in a little bit, and I'm like, oh, crap. I'm like, yeah, you are. As a matter of fact, like literally it showed at that moment that our hydrant was being flushed. Yeah. And so like she had to think that I was a goofball. But you know what I mean? That's how like real-time access you guys have provided to us.
GIS, and the folks in that group will tell you, it's not just about mapping. GIS isn't mapping. It's basically anytime you ask a question, where is something happening? GIS is a potential answer. And so like the example with the hydrant flushing, we know where all those hydrant locations are. Yep. They're in the system. And now we can have tablets to the crews in the field to say, we're flushing this hydrant. Yep. This hydrant's done. And that data's updated.
And what was funny, I went back like 10 minutes later, checked, and that hydrant was green. And and it was literally like, let's call it 3:50 or something. Like they were finishing up their day and they put the last one in, and like it was all done. And I'm like, again, it just amazes me. So that was one of those totally off script things. Yeah, right?
Well, I think that's cool for a tech guy like you. Yeah. I mean, to still be kind of impressed with the way that data's integrated.
Oh, yeah, cool. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. Mark, great job. I'll pass.
Talented folks.
But that kind of leads us to a lot of the stuff that we actually want to talk about today, which is a couple of the big projects you guys have coming up. Yeah. And the one that I am constantly amazed with again is our internet service. Yeah. And we were one of the first communities anywhere to have fiber and like gig level service. Yeah. And what are you guys doing now? Like what's next?
Yeah, you hear a lot more nowadays about fiber to the home systems being built. There's a lot of grant funding at the state and the federal level to get high-speed broadband to everybody. So fiber has been a big story in the last 3 to 5 years. We made that commitment back in, I think, 2015 to embark on that fiber to the home project. And I think it was very wise of the leadership at the time to embark on that project, because now we have that infrastructure in place. So fiber is much more reliable than the old coax system we had, but it also is almost future-proof. And so it allows you to take your current service and continue to upgrade it more easily. And we're at that stage now. So we currently offer 1 gig internet service to residential customers. So especially for like the gamers in the community, having that full symmetrical, you can download 1 gig, you can upload 1 gig service is really valuable. But we're now ready to take that next step and launch multi-gig services. So we're going to be rolling out a 2 gig and a 5 gig internet service to customers in Muscatine. And it's really taking it to that next level. We've got a beta tester that's been working with the 5 gig service here for just a few days, and the initial feedback is very positive. And
how was I not one of those beta testers?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I don't
Mitch.
I didn't get on the list either, Chris, so I'm not sure.
All right.
But of course, that customer, heavy gamer, and just wowed by how quickly you can get that data, huge amounts of data downloaded so fast, and it has an impact. For folks in that community, the speed of that connection is very highly coveted amongst those players, and so we're really excited to be able to launch that next phase in internet service in Muscatine.
And what's really cool, I try and like take this stuff and like turn it into regular terms, because again, I'm nerd boy. When we think about like a gig service, okay, so say that's like a pipe this big, And then you go to a 5 gig. Obviously, you have literally 5 times as much that can go through at once. But the other thing that it allows it to do, and this is sort of what you were talking about, is it's called the ping time, right? Which is how long it takes like the data to actually get there and back.
Right.
And when you're playing a game, or even like with us doing video broadcasts and stuff, that ping is actually just as important as how much goes through, because basically you're getting frames of the game faster, or our frames are getting out to YouTube faster, so people are seeing things a lot closer to real time, and things like that. So and that's just as important and just as cool. It's not as maybe easy to understand as like, oh hey, yeah, I can download a movie in 2 minutes instead of 5, right? But it's that initial speed is going to be tremendous.
When I think that symmetrical capability of fiber, where you can download and upload the same level, and again for gamers where there's a flow back and forth of that data, and so some older systems that even as they have increased download speeds, they still are pretty constrained by upload, and that has a big impact. So with fiber being able to have that symmetrical system is really important. And with that rollout, we'll be talking more about what we're kind of calling a 10 gig system, and it's kind of that backbone infrastructure that is just capable of handling much higher speeds. And we have customers in Muscatine, commercial enterprise level customers that have huge data needs, and we can deliver that stuff. So we've got a very strong core network that can handle much higher than just 5 gig speeds even for those types of customers.
Yeah, and that's like, again, I can't always find the words to describe how unique and beneficial that is for this community. Like, even with us, like moving video around, we move video around so much easier than other people I know in the industry. They struggle with it. And like, I mean, we'll move a terabyte of data and it's like a 10-minute thing, and others it's like all day, right? So,
I think it's another, important commitment that was made by the leadership of the community, back in the 90s to start the municipal communications utility. And one of the biggest reasons was reliability and just a lack of reinvestment by the private provider. It's kind of understandable. We were a relatively smaller community for them and their footprint. They have to prioritize their investment dollars. But for Muscatine, we needed the focus and priority on our community, and so it made sense to get in the business, if you will, as a municipal utility. And I think that's been the biggest thing on the communication side, is making that continued investment in Muscatine.
And again, folks, seeing things behind the scenes, it's always like, if you ever got the privilege to walk through the locked doors and see what goes on back there, this stuff is like on their screens. Like, they live this. They don't just talk about it. Like, there's dashboards, like you walk through, and like I went back to work on our channel server, and in one spot there's literally a TV that shows here's where everything's green, like, and there's multiple throughout. So like, literally they can be walking to get a pop and they can still be seeing what's going on.
You go running back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned it earlier that sometimes it seems like we know about an issue before the customer does, and that actually is our goal. That's been a big push, is to be more proactive. We want to be monitoring the condition of the system. We want to know when there's an issue before the customer calls us, so that when they do call, if they recognize it, we can say, yes, we're aware, we're already working on it. That is our goal. We want to be out ahead of those issues. Which actually is a perfect segue. You should do this for a living. You could host a show, because that flips us right over to the other big thing you guys have been working on for, I don't know when you guys started. I mean, it's been probably a solid year getting ready for this, and that's your customer satisfaction survey, your customer survey, which you guys do a tremendous job of tracking every call that comes in, every piece of info about something that doesn't go right. But this is like a nice all-encompassing way to get everybody's feedback on how you're doing. So what all are you going to do? It's been a few years since we've done a full big customer survey. And like you said, we do collect a lot of data in real time as we go, and we report out to the board on positives and opportunities from customer feedback. But it's time for us again to get another full survey out to customers. And as you mentioned, customer satisfaction, that'll be a part of it, is how satisfied are customers with their current service. We'll also have some questions about maybe the future of some of our product lines and services, getting some feedback, some data points from customers so that we can help make decisions based on that feedback. But what we're looking at doing is launching an online survey. So it'll come via email. You may have seen, unfortunately, people had to see my face again on a video if they saw that, the announcement of the survey. And I shared a few reasons why I think it really is worth taking just a few minutes to complete the survey. I mean, we all utilize utility services in some way in Muscatine, and so we want to hear your voice and hear if there's opportunities we could improve or what are the things that are most important to you. We want that information, we truly do. And so I think it'll take 5 to 10 minutes at most to complete the survey, depending on how many utility services you use. So not a big time commitment to complete this. But that'll be coming out here in just about a week or so. Customers should start to see that in their email. So look for that, and please do take the opportunity to complete it. And then those that complete it will get entered in for a chance to win a couple of really nice prizes. So that's an added benefit.
And the one thing that I'm gonna tie this into the election, because you should be out there voting today, right? And if you don't fill out a customer survey, you don't get to complain. That's the new Pearl City Media rule, okay? Because these guys are going above and beyond. Like, again, if you guys saw the amount of work that this team put in to get these surveys right and then be able to act on them, you'd be blown away. And so take 5 minutes, fill it out, make sure that they know what they're doing well, because they will act on it. And also, these are people in our community. If they're doing well, give them a pat on the back, which, if you look at our uptime stuff, I'll brag for them. If you look at our uptime, if you look at our prices, it's not like, I did a thing, this was about 2 years ago, I think. I was sitting in a meeting and we were talking about electrical rates, and they said, well, what about the way this community out on the West Coast does it? So I looked up their rates real quick, and they were literally 2.5 times ours. And I'm like, okay, and I know it's tough when you're looking at a bill. It can be like, man, that's expensive or whatever. But in those times, I know it's hard to be grateful. But it could be exponentially worse. That sounds,
Yeah, no, that's not lost on us either. That the utility bill is a significant expense outside of a mortgage or a rent. It's probably the most expensive, part of your living expenses. And one of the things about MPW is because we do provide so many different services, they all end up on one bill. And so we know that can be a challenge as well. But as you're saying, if you actually compare service by service, electric rates versus others, water rates, which are just very, very low, communication rates, video, internet. So on a service by service basis, all compare very, very favorably. But utilities are a big service, and that's another kind of takeaway too. That as we get into these holiday seasons, and into the winter season, sometimes customers do struggle with paying their utility bills, and there are resources available to you. So if you or somebody is in a situation where they are struggling, reach out to us. The best thing to do is contact us. We have folks that can help work with you to get on a payment plan to make sure that your utility service stay online while you get caught up. But the best thing to do is reach out to us early.
Yep, absolutely. So again, quick recap on that. You'll get the survey in your email. If they don't get it, I assume maybe reach out to the help desk.
Yeah, you could always call at 263-2631. Our customer service reps or our help desk folks. We could resend the survey if needed.
Is it available on Smart Hub? Do we know? Can you get to it?
That's a good question. I think it's coming through via email, but that's maybe.
I wonder if we could maybe
see if we could link to.
Come on, Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch.
Let's go, Mitch.
We already have an action item.
We already have it. This is you're not supposed to come on here and get homework, right?
Yeah, right.
So those are kind of the two big things right now, but there are a whole bunch of big infrastructure projects coming up in the next year, and we all see them, kind of floating around here and there, but like each one of these, like especially the water, I think it's really easy to take for granted. And so I know like you guys have like the West Hill projects. Like what all do you have coming up on like that infrastructure-y side, so we know when like, oh hey, that's closed down, we know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what utilities do is infrastructure, and so we just reviewed our 2024 operating budget with our board last week, And we have $17.7 million in capital expenditures planned just in 2024. So a significant amount of dollars and resources planned for next year already. On the water side, some of the bigger things are West Hill Sewer Separation Project. So this is driven by city work to do the separation of the storm and sanitary sewers, but we've taken the approach of trying to work collaboratively together to, as they go through the phases of that project, we work with them to look at the water main infrastructure, the hydrants, the services to customers, and try and work in parallel so that they don't do this work and then we come back 2 years later, tear up the same street to replace the water main. And so that has worked pretty darn well. I think the relationship between MPW staff and city staff is really strong right now. There's good collaboration, good communication, good joint planning. And so we have several years of those projects kind of preliminarily phased out to work together. So part of that is doing water main work associated with West Hill Phase 6A and 6B, which is continuing in that Sycamore Street area that they're currently working on now.
Oh, right.
Between, I think, 8th and 11th. And then the next phase is to go further up Sycamore out to Fulham, and then go up Fulham, up the hill a little bit over towards Nelson Drive, I think is the next phase of that. So,
Where's Nelson Drive?
it's kind of the next little, it's just a short road. Just
Oh, it's the,
hill
yeah,
up
it's like
Fulham.
the little, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I found being in this role that there's a lot of street names in Muscatine that I've never heard of that they might only be a block long.
Well,
and I'll test you on another one.
Well, see, what's funny is I usually think I know them pretty well, you know, because like we're constantly, I'm like, that's one that, like Oneida, that's an easy one.
You
know, like
there's with Sheridan Street.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all right. Well, where is it?
So Sheridan's, isn't that the, no, it's over on Park Avenue, off
Right.
Park Avenue. It goes down to, like if you're going out to the mall, it's down to the left. It's right where the laundromat and like by Los's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heads east off of Park Avenue
Yeah.
there. You got it. Nailed it.
Well, I grew up on the top of Fifth Street Hill, so
Okay,
that wasn't,
well,
that one wasn't that hard.
But we've got a water main replacement on Sheridan Street. That's a water main that's just in need of replacement. I don't think there are any hydrants on that street currently, so we'll be installing hydrants. It's just one that's been on our list. We have a pretty comprehensive way that we prioritize water main replacements. There's always more opportunity than what we can accomplish, you know, with the capital dollars that we have. And so we try to prioritize on a number of factors, and that's one that's come up to the priority list. Well 27, so we have a significant amount of wells to produce water in Muscatine. We sell between 10 and 11 billion gallons of water every year in Muscatine, which for a community of our size is just crazy.
Yeah.
And so we have several wells in service. We have 3 different well fields in Muscatine. Well 27, we're planning to re-drill. We've had some issues over the years with that well, so it's been out of service. We're planning to relocate that to just a different location. But even that is, you know, it's another project that's several $100,000.
Right.
And so it maybe even seems kind of somewhat smaller in nature, but these things are expensive. Infrastructure is expensive. And then every year we have projects to replace several fire hydrants throughout the community and large valves throughout the community. And those are important. Of course, fire hydrants are important to make sure that they're there and ready and operational when you need them. Just absolutely critical when you have an emergency. And so we have hydrants throughout the system that are very, very old. And so we always try to identify if one's out of service and we replace it, but we also try to proactively replace them, the older ones, over time. And then large valve. Go ahead.
Oh, the nice thing about the fire hydrants, you guys doing that is the fire hydrants that you take out make great art canvases for Chris to paint stuff on. Little plug, go stop by the public safety building, and there's 2, right, Chris? There's a fire department and police department fire hydrant that you guys all worked on together to come up with to honor those guys.
Yeah,
so.
Chris did a fantastic job. They turned out so cool.
Yeah,
and
I would have never.
To mount them in that location at the public safety building.
He came in, it's like, we're gonna paint some fire hydrants, and I'm like, what? And they turned out awesome.
Yeah,
like they absolutely
really
turned
did.
out awesome.
And I think there was a public service kind of recognition, public safety recognition day last year that we kind of celebrated that. And,
So save all those when they come out. Save them because we're gonna need them.
Send them to Chris. And then large valves throughout the system. So anytime we do have a water main break, an unplanned outage, or that we're doing a project like replacing water main, those valves in the system are really important to minimize the actual scope of the outage when we have an issue. And so it's important that those valves operate when you need them. So we have some proactive valve operation programs, but then also we plan to replace some large valves or install a new valve if we've identified, well, that would be very beneficial to have a valve in this area. So every year we dedicate some CapEx dollars to that work as well. So another busy year for water.
I was gonna say, and that's just the water, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't have it on my list, but we'll be starting the work. So we have an East Hill Reservoir. It's a reservoir that most customers aren't familiar with. It's kind of tucked away behind a couple of commercial buildings. It's about a $2 million project to refurbish that reservoir, and that's some work that we'll be doing between 24 and 25. But for the water utility, a $2 million expenditure is significant, and so that's another big infrastructure item we have coming up.
what's electric got?
Electric, several things, and a lot of the stuff that isn't on the list, there's a tremendous amount of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yep.
All the stuff that happens at the power plant or in substations, a lot of things that customers don't necessarily see or impact them directly. Some of the things that they will likely see, we have some continued overhead to underground work, so we still have a fair amount of overhead electrical infrastructure throughout the community. And again, we have ways of kind of prioritizing where we want to target undergrounding those services. Some of it has to do if we have a history of reliability issues. So if they're in very heavily treed areas, we could have more animal-related outages or tree limb-related outages, and so that might be a priority to put those services underground.
Solves the squirrel problem.
The squirrel problem, oh geez, they hit us on the electric side, and then we found they like chewing on fiber cable as well. So, we've had some big internet outages where squirrels, and they always like to chew on the cables that have lots of fiber in them, you know, so they take out as many customers as possible. They must have their own priority system that they're working out and try to target those areas.
So with the next order you do for like big fiber rolls, be like, hey, can you put in the anti-squirrel repellent in this stuff?
You know,
like,
you're joking, but it's a thing. Yeah, so they have things like that will have capsaicin or some other kind of pepper, you know, related coating that the squirrels don't like to chew on. So
that's awesome.
Yep, and we've done a lot of things to install additional animal guarding though that you can do, like the pole bands around the bottom of the poles, and that has had a significant impact on our number of squirrel-related outages, both on fiber and on the electrical system. So that was a good project we did, I think, last year.
Oh, the squirrels.
Squirrels, yeah.
Squirrels.
Yeah, they might be cute, but they're the bane of utilities, that's for sure. But on the overhead underground, and again, some of this work is done in conjunction with city projects, like with the West Hill projects, where we know infrastructure is going to be torn up, we know the streets are going to be shut down. That's an opportunity to look at doing an overhead to underground conversion there. So we have some areas around Brook Street Park, Lombard Street, between East 3rd and 4th Streets, we'll be doing some undergrounding. Other areas, Mulberry Avenue, from between Bartlett and Maple, so kind of by Jefferson School area.
Just up,
Yep, and then in the area of West Hill Sewer Separation 6A and 6B, we talked about earlier, that Sycamore and kind of between Sycamore and Iowa Avenue areas, we'll be doing some more undergrounding. But those are good ways to kind of beautify the area, get that infrastructure underground, and then it becomes more reliable when you don't have the risk of tree limbs and squirrels.
And tornadoes and ice storms. And
the downside of underground infrastructure is then when you do have an underground cable failure, it can be a little bit harder to locate initially and then take longer to repair. You have fewer outages, but they can be longer in length when you do have them.
But the nice thing, they have like ways to reroute power all over everywhere. So it's not quite as like.
Yeah, and our team does and that's a lot of times the first priority if we think it's going to be a longer outage is how can we reroute circuits to get as many customers back on first and then focus on the outage area. And
one little thing, again, behind the scenes, you know those old like 60s, 70s movies where you see like this control room with the big old map on the wall and like they literally have that out there. Yeah. Like it literally, it's like you're stepping back in time. And I'm not sure, but it's got like basically every like line sort of on that map, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has our transmission lines, so everything is 161,000 volt, 69,000 volt, and then we have all of our substations.
I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah. But it's kind of crazy. So your average outlet 120 volts, right?
Right.
So we have some of our transmission lines that operate at 161,000 volts.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So
All
the
right.
highest voltage stuff are transmission lines, and then our substations, we have all those mapped out, and then what we call the primary 13.8 kV circuits are all mapped out on that board. So we don't have every circuit,
right. Yeah.
but all that primary system. And a map board, you don't see them as much anymore, like you're saying. But it really is helpful for situational awareness for those operators, where they can really step back and see the entire system. What breakers are closed in, what's open. And so we really like having that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Some of the other bigger stuff on electric is related to powering the future. We've talked about that, in the show in the past too. So we're starting to take some of the steps forward on that powering the future effort. We have our Muscatine Solar 1 project that's currently in development. We're working with the electric grid operator, MISO. They have an interconnection process that takes literally years to get through, so we're working through that process with them now. We're still looking at maybe a late 2025 in-service date for that project. That's really exciting. It's a huge solar project. It'll be about 240, 250 acres on an existing well field, so we're not taking good farmland out of service for that, which is exciting. So that's moving forward. As part of that project, we have to upgrade a substation that's in that area, both to interconnect to that solar project, as well as that substation's in need of some upgrades. It was originally built many years ago as a temporary substation, and so even some of the equipment wasn't quite spec'd the same way as some of our other subs, and so now it's time to go back and upgrade a lot of that existing equipment in that sub. So that substation will see about a $6.2 million upgrade just in and of itself. And so we're starting some of the work on that project next year. At the power plant facility, we have some environmental compliance projects coming up. It's an area where regulations are always changing and things are always getting tighter, and so we have some work that'll start next year to investigate some different compliance options for one of the key rules that we face in the years to come. So, and those things are multi-million-dollar type projects. It's big stuff.
Well, and it all kind of fits back, and we've talked about this, the power in the future concept, and maintaining reliability, flexibility, affordability, and
reliability, flexibility, affordability, sustainability.
I forgot the last one. I was trying to remember.
So.
I started getting them out of order, and then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
crap. No, but you guys, again, this goes back to that long-term, short-term combination of stuff. And you guys have done, again, a great job of saying, okay, where are we going to need to be? And balancing all four of those, because it's not all about just being the cheapest, because then it's not necessarily sustainable.
Right.
It's not about being 1,000% sustainable, because then, again, you end up like that place I was talking about where it's 3 times the cost.
Right.
And you've got to balance that stuff. And you guys have done a great job of maintaining flexibility as the times change, because we know we're in this transition period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it will continue to be a challenge over the next 5 years to strike that right balance and ensure that, but our top priority will always be the reliability of the system. It's so important to residents and our business and industrial customers. And we've seen that in some of the major winter storm events on the system down south, where they've had rolling blackouts or widespread blackouts. It's not just inconvenient, it's deadly when those things happen. And so we take that reliability system extremely seriously. And that has to be kind of the top of the pile. But you can take that too far as well. You know, you can overbuild reliability in the system to where it drives rates up significantly. And so I think you touched on it really well, that you have to keep it all in balance.
Well, and I think about like this summer, we were having conversations about what loads might look like, and might there have to be, some load shedding and and there was, to my knowledge, there wasn't.
Nope.
Was there? Okay, I didn't think so. But like you guys are prepared for it. Again, like I can't start, because I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that prepares for everything. I'm the guy that goes, you know what, I've got the tools, I'll fix it when something happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's just because we're small in what we do.
Right.
And so again, watching you guys do that just blows my mind.
Yeah, and we've got some really great customers that are open to working with us proactively on that stuff and getting plans in place. And like you said, to a certain degree, when an event happens, you're going to have to figure some of it out.
Right.
I think Mike Tyson said everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Sometimes those outage events can feel like a punch in the mouth. But the better you can prepare, and when you can drill and you can tabletop these things, the event might not play out exactly like that, but you are mentally more prepared. You're more familiar with your policies and your procedures you need to follow. So yeah, it's very important stuff.
So as we kind of like swing back from water to electrical to back to the communications utility, the neat thing that you guys have coming up is like expanding that footprint.
Right.
And this kind of makes sense. It was really easy to like come downtown and do it because there's a whole bunch of customers in a really small area, right? But when you start getting a little further out from the center of town, you get further and further between each customer. So it becomes cost prohibitive at times. Right. But you guys have done a great job of like, you got some grants, you got some other stuff, and there's like some big expansion projects coming up. Yeah,
you touched on it really well. The fundamental challenge for these rural areas is the cost per subscriber to do that build out. And it's why a lot of these subscribers don't have good internet service now, is because it costs so much to get each one of them. What the state level funding and now the federal level funding is provided is to fill that gap. So we have certain payback requirements if we're going to expand to an area that we have to meet, because as a municipal utility, our focus needs to be on our core customer base. We're not going to take over the entire eastern part of the state or anything like that. We're going to stay local, and so we need to know that if we're going to expand, we provide a payback to our core customers. And in the past, we couldn't get out to some of these areas and meet that payback requirement. And so the grant funding basically fills that gap and says, now we can do those expansions, we can serve more members. So we still consider kind of the Muscatine community. A lot of these neighborhoods, so NOFA 6 is the one we're currently under construction, is out Highway 22, upriver. You've got several housing neighborhoods up there. Folks that I would think still would call themselves part of Muscatine, and you're part of the community. A lot of them work in the community. And they definitely have a desire to get this service out there. And the perfect example is if you guys know where like the Geneva plant is and like Geneva Hills Drive, like that area is right where it starts. So like my brother-in-law is literally like the first house on the left on Geneva Hills Drive, right? So they had horrible internet forever, right? Like bad cell signals, everything, just because they're at the bottom of the hill. And I remember one time, this was maybe about 2 years ago when this all sort of started coming together. He's like, you ever think MPW would actually come out this way? And I'm like, what, it's funny. I actually just had a meeting. Can't tell anybody yet, but if they get the grant, and you did, and so now here we are 2 years later, and you're digging and you're taking internet all the way out. Right, and so that project's going really well. We've got a lot of the mainline conduit installed. We're doing splicing of several areas of mainline fiber, as well as doing drops to homes, and we've even done installations of some of the customers, so we're starting to turn up customers in some of those areas now. And that work will just continue, through the end of this year, start of the next year. Whatever we can do in the winter, we'll keep moving forward. And then next year, we'll start on mainline construction for NOFA 7. So this was the second grant opportunity that our team applied for and received funding for. And this is to expand out kind of the northwest part of our territory, so North Tipton Road, Bayfield Road area. So again, lower housing density, but good opportunities, and could be long-term, development growth areas for Muscatine. To have all that infrastructure in place to be ready for that will be good for all of us. One of the things I like to reinforce too, for why is this good for our core customers to expand? There's a significant amount of fixed costs associated with providing video, internet, and phone. You've seen the Network Operations Center on NOC, all the equipment there, the staff there, to get even one internet customer. There's a significant amount of equipment it takes in ongoing O&M. So to expand the customer base, now you have more customers helping to pay for that fixed cost, which helps keep rates low for everybody. And so that's one of the big benefits for the expansion. Yeah, and again, folks, I wish you guys could see the level of what it takes to actually pull this stuff off, right? Like when I get to go in and work on our server, I get to go into the room, right? And when you see it, you would just be flabbergasted. Like I'm still, I know for those guys like Moffitt and some of those guys, it's what they do all day. They don't really they know it's a big deal and stuff, but like when I walk in there, I sit there and go, I joke, and sometimes I
think I probably shouldn't, but like, if I like pulled one little thing out, like the whole thing, and it doesn't all go down, but like, like all of Muscatine's community, like that's what it is. And it's just absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah.
And don't breathe in there, because if the humidity goes up too high, you get kicked out. That's no joke. Like we were in there working on the channel and we were talking, right? And there's a humidity monitor in there, and we'd been in there for a while because it was being a pain in the butt. And it kind of, and we're like watching it, like, shh, don't say anything, and like, and it's serious.
A scientific proof that Chris is full of hot air. I think we've determined on the show.
Moist air at least. Moist air at least.
Headline.
Wow. I walked right into that one.
No, but it is, and we've got, as you mentioned, a tremendous staff that works on that equipment, and our reliability metrics on the internet and video side have gone up significantly over the last few years too, because there's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So we talk about expansion, which everybody can see, and there's an impact in the community, but there's been so much behind the scenes improvements and upgrades to kind of that core network, in not just increasing the capacity, but also adding more redundancy, getting systems in place that better reroute traffic. When we have one piece of equipment fail, everything automatically reroutes. And it's really neat to see that happen, because customers don't even know. You've maybe lost a major piece of equipment and there's no impact to customers. It takes a lot of work to get to that point, and the team's done an excellent job. And that's one where we have in our 10-year capital plans, it's a continued reinvestment, because that work's just never done.
Well, and again, I just want to like cap this all up, because that was a lot of info. Like, guys, that was so much Muscatine info in I don't know how long. That's like, know this stuff though. Like, these are the things that if you know the stuff that we talk about over the last 15, 20 minutes or whatever it was, you're going to understand your community. You're going to be able to understand what's going on, why decisions are made the way they are. And that's why I really appreciate, like, Gage, you taking the time to come in and kind of help everybody understand those like big picture things. Because it's sometimes really easy to like, oh, there's a pothole in front of my house, right? Or my internet, whatever it is, you can get really focused on those small things, and you forget about the other 21,999 people living around, and how it all comes together and what we really have.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that, because it takes a tremendous amount of work to deliver utilities and deliver them to the levels of reliability that we have come accustomed to. And we've got just a great team, and you've got the chance to meet with them, a lot of them, and work with them. Something I'm very, very proud to be a part of MPW, and love talking about it, as you can tell. Yeah. So, you want to talk mission statement real quick before we go?
Absolutely.
That might be a great way to cap this all off.
Well, I'm going to tee it off, because I know the mission. I always, when I think of MPW, I'm going to tell you the one thing that I think about. Do you remember those old, was it Dove commercials for the soap that was like 99.44% pure, right? Do you remember those? Like 99.44. And that was like amazing. That was the thing they advertised for years and years and years. Okay, 99.44. These guys, I think the last reliability, and he can totally correct me on this if you want to, but it was like 99.99, and it was like 6 nines out, like 6 or 7 nines out. So like exponentially better than Dove soap is MPW, right? Like that, but seriously, that's how I think about it.
And getting to once you get beyond 99.9, getting those higher levels becomes more and more challenging. Right. And kind of our goal for services is 5 nines.
5. Okay, I was close.
And on the communication side, that's a really tough challenge. I think we did just hit 99.99x on internet last quarter, so 4 nines, which is a big milestone for internet. The electric side is even higher, but it's those are, when you drive the scale of the chart, you got to zoom way in to see any differences on those bars, but it's exciting stuff. So mission statement. So I mentioned strategic plan, I think, a little bit earlier. We've updated and revised our strategic plan for MPW, and this is a 3-year plan that will roll out for 2024 through 2026. One of the things we looked at when we went through the strat plan this year was our mission statement, our core values. These are things that have been unchanged for quite some time, which is good, right? Mm-hmm. Your mission and your core values shouldn't be things that change frequently as an organization. But it was time to take a hard look at them. We workshopped with our leadership team and several staff of what is it about our current mission statement that we like, don't like, what do we want to change? and we developed a new mission statement that I'm really happy with how it turned out. So our new mission statement is to provide best-in-class utilities through exceptional local service to empower Muscatine's residents and businesses to thrive. And so it's a little wordy yet, right? But I think what I like about it is it hits three key components. It says what we do. We provide best-in-class utilities. It says how we do it, through exceptional local service. And it says why we do it, to empower Muscatine's residents and businesses to thrive. And so I like that it captures all those three core components all in one phrase. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I really think it speaks to what we do every day.
And you know, it's funny, when I read it, when I got the notes, the funny thing was, it just was right. Like, it didn't even dawn on me that it was new at first when I read it, because I'm like, oh, I guess that's what it is. Like, that is what you guys do. Like, it was just like, oh, yep, that's the new, like, it didn't even dawn on me how much you'd actually changed it. Like, you know, that it was like a significant change, but like, because that's what you are.
Right, yeah, and I really feel like that is what we do. It really rings true to kind of how we function and what our employees focus on every day.
Well, Gage, thank you for stopping in, as always. Appreciate it. And this is one that's going to go in the best of archives, and we'll keep showing this one all the time, because it's got a lot of great info for the next year or two at least. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for being such a great supporter.
No problem. No problem. So Muscatine, don't forget, it's election day. Go vote. Go vote. The polling places, everything. Just get to any page on discovermuscatine.com. Up the top, you can click Election Central. You can see every polling place. You can see all the candidates, all the interviews. There's no excuse for not knowing what you need to know to go vote. So,
and I will just support that. You did an excellent job of putting that information together. That's where we went to do the research for voting. And I'm so disappointed. I brought my sticker with me so that I could wear it on the show, and I left it in the car. So I voted this morning. So
I'm going to head out after the show. But so thank you, Muscatine. Enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to go attack the rest of the day with an enthusiasm